Hello, and welcome to Successful Not Satisfied. Here is the podcast where we interview executives, CEOs, and business owners, much like you, who are trying to figure out how to make it all work, make it go, and dealing with the daily challenges that most businesses face. Here you're going to learn about what they're doing to overcome those challenges, and hopefully you'll get some ideas to help your own company. So check it out, Successful Not Satisfied. Enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to Successful Not Satisfied. Today I have Jay Goninen joining me. Jay, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
Very good. Jay, you're a fellow car guy in a way because you have a company called Find a Wrench, and also, actually, I think it's two companies, Find a Wrench and Wrenchway, correct?
Correct. Yeah. We actually we work with dealerships, and so car and truck dealerships, and independent repair shops to help them find mechanics or technicians for their shop. So yeah, very, very involved with the automotive industry and the diesel and heavy duty industries as well.
Got it. Well, I'll probably need you to have you find a technician for my project car here because it seems to be a never-ending battle to get that thing up and running. So
they tend to turn into that, don't they? Like that's I've got one in my garage right now as well. So it'll it is funny how I think I use that more as time to get away from my computer and get away from my phone. So it's almost like my therapy, if you will. It's always fun.
Same here. Right now, though, it feels like death by a thousand cuts because every time I go to fix something, I uncover two other things that are broken. So it just keeps going. eBay is my friend. So is YouTube.
100%. It's a good thing though, because you learn something every time you do it. And I think that's, we talk about that not only from the business aspect, but a lot of these young technicians that come out in the field is getting confidence and being able to fix, what's really, really highly advanced. We talked about, I was talking with a customer a week or two ago, and they were talking about like their 2010 Chevy Suburban, and they're saying, like people don't know, there's like 20 computers on this thing. It's really, really advanced. And that's where, I think we have some trouble finding people as an industry and keeping them trained up enough to be able to keep up with technology. And it's an ever changing industry and one that I think is only going to get tougher and tougher as we move forward here.
Yeah, I can speak to that personally. There's only 12 computers on my 97 Corvette, but that's going back 24 years, and think of the technology back then. So it is getting more difficult. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on here, because you can kind of, I've always been a big advocate for not everyone needs to go to college. College is great, and there are certain people that's going to benefit. There are other people, though, that might not be a good fit. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the automotive industry as you're starting to allude to, and kind of how your company has found its niche within that, and also what you're facing as far as challenges, because a lot of what you're focused on is getting the right people, getting these technicians into these dealerships and body shops and everywhere else. So tell me a little bit more about, I guess you can start with Find a Wrench, you can start with Wrenchway, whichever way you want to go.
Yeah, well, I think just in terms of the way that we did it. So I started the company Find a Wrench in 2017. My background is primarily all in the industry. I was not a recruiter, but did see that there was a huge need from my personal experience to help shops find technicians and find really, really good talent to add to their teams. And I knew a lot of people, including myself, that were looking through resumes, in the off hours and trying to find those people. And so we wanted to start something that wasn't like an executive recruiting firm, because they typically charge, 20% of first year salary. Mm-hmm. And it was just really unrealistic for kind of a blue collar type of trade at the time. And actually, I think that might be shifting a little bit now, but it really was, there was a need just to help. And, as I talked to more and more shop owners, shop managers, dealer principals, whoever it might be, they were all struggling. So I started Find a Wrench at the same time as I had my son, Bo. So I actually wrote the business plan and the NICU back in 2017.
Oh, wow.
And we went after it. So I give my wife a lot of credit because I think going into it and saying, hey, I'm going to start a business while, I'm going to leave my really good job, start a business, and at the same time have a kid is, I actually remember going down to my dad's shop in Mineral Point and having my grandpa be in there. And I told him about this is like 2 weeks after I quit my job, and I have a 2-week-old. And my grandpa was the look of disappointment in his eyes when I told him that I was quitting my really, really well-paying job that had insurance to start a business while having a kid. I don't think he was overly thrilled with me for doing that. So definitely kind of fought those obstacles, but as we went through, you're really trying to figure out if there's a product market fit, right? And I think that was, as we were going through, it became evident really, really quick. Like, it wasn't just me having this issue, everybody had been. And actually Find a Wrench itself, the name Find a Wrench came from my dad when I was a kid saying, I can't find a damn wrench anywhere. And so he was referring to techs, right? And so the problem just got worse and worse and worse. So started Find a Wrench. We grew really, really fast, probably too fast. I think looking back, our customer service kind of really struggled at some points because we grew too fast, and we were trying to add to our team really fast. And I think looking back, I wish I would have controlled that growth a little bit. But at the time, you're trying to generate cash flow and you're trying to make sure that you stay in business, right? So there is some level of trying to balance that, which was really, really tough. And then we kept growing and growing, and I found the need to really have a business partner. And it wasn't something going into it where I'm like, I'm going to need a business partner. It was more out of me sitting down with my good buddy Mark Wilson and having beers with him and just talking through our war stories, right? Like, we were going through different things in both of our businesses. And so we, one night we're just sitting there talking. He was having a little trouble finding a niche for his product. He had been really successful in the past, sold a company to Microsoft, had done really well. And I knew we needed help on the product side, and he liked doing the stuff that I hated doing. So the accounting stuff and like the general day-to-day operation stuff. So we merged our companies, and it was really cool because we both had similar size teams. Ours was a little bit bigger because of our recruiters. We have a lot of 1099ers that are out there kind of across the country. And we merged the companies, and there was no overlap. Everything, I had recruiting and sales teams, he had marketing and tech teams, and that is on our companies at the start of 2020. We were actually working together probably prior to that for I don't know, 4 or 5 months. At the same point, wanted to work on a tech company model, right? And kind of put our hat into that ring and try to find something different. So we came out with the company Wrenchway. It's a sister company to Find a Wrench. And with that, we wanted to, we really looked at problems that we had in recruiting for shops. And one of those problems was it was really hard to stand out. You could post all you wanted on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or whatever, but in most scenarios, if you lived anywhere with population, you were probably on the back of page 5 on Indeed by the end of the first day. And that's paid, right? Like it was a big struggle to stick out. So we created these profile pages for shops to be able to market themselves to technicians. We do some coaching with them to teach them how to use the pages, again, using some of the stuff we've learned in the recruiting side. And so that part has been growing. It's a different kind of business. It's a different kind of sales strategy going into that. But then, we keep adding to it. We wanted to use kind of that Amazon platform, or that Amazon idea of just continually adding value for the price. And so we keep coming out with cool things. I give Mark a ton of credit on that side, and our dev team for some of the stuff they come up with. They're just brilliant. But this last piece is something I'm really excited about, called reverse job posting. And essentially what it is it's a blind profile for a tech. So if you kind of think like dating app for mechanics, that's kind of what it is. They put a blind profile out. They don't share their name, where they work, but they do talk about their experience, education, certifications, and what they're looking for in a shop. And shops can apply to talk to them. So we think that's really cool. I think that's the way not only our industry is going to go, but most blue collar industries are going to go, is because I think we're going to be 700,000 people short in 2024. I want to say that's a stat. So we are so far behind on the amount of people needed to do this work that we're not digging out of it anytime soon. And so that gives leverage to the technicians. And ultimately that's what this platform is all about, being able to just kind of make their lives easier.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I already see what technician costs are. I mean, they're going up by quite a bit. As I mentioned, my project car, there are certain things I can't handle. And when it comes to putting a car on a rack, that's one of the things. So I need somebody else to take care of some of the mechanical stuff. But it is difficult to find spots or, to find times when you can get your car in, because most places are so backed up because they are short on techs. How have the techs received that change that you made, where now they can post their profile online for other people to find? Has it been easy to get them to adapt?
They love it. Once they use it, they love it. One of the problems, I think, and one of the barriers we work to get around is the skepticism that we're trying to use their data for something else, or trying to give their data to something else, because everything we do for technicians is free. And so we give away prizes. We have these challenges that we put out each week, asking for their thoughts on different subjects. And we try to get the voice of technician. And really all we're trying to do is take that information and turn it into educational content. That's what we use for our marketing content, is to be able to pick their brains and say, hey, what are you thinking? And then being able to use the collective voice of all of them to turn that into marketing resources has been great. We give away, I think, a weekly $100 gift card. And then we have this other bigger prize where if they win that, they have a chance at our Queen of Hearts game. And I think right now it's up to $2,000.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. So there's some real prizes out there. There's real incentive for them to come out, and we make it fun. But I think when somebody looks at it and they're like, well, they're not just giving us a gift card. They're not just doing like for the kindness of their soul. Right. It really is trying to get them to understand we're trying to use the voice of technicians, because we need to make the industry better as a whole. We're a mission-driven company in that regard, where we want the industry to be better because we're so far behind. We need to make sure that we're treating the people that we've already got in really well, so that we can bring more people from that high school or tech school level into the business. So that's the hard. They love it once they start using it. They really, really love it. It's just a matter of getting them through. Even the first guy that won the big prize, he won $2,400, and he didn't believe it until he got the money, and then he's like, oh man, this is actually real. This is real money. I'm like, yeah, we're trying to tell you that. Like it very much is.
I can understand where it might be a little lack of trust, because there are so many websites out there that just collect your data and really don't provide you with a benefit. And but you need them. I mean, you really need the technicians on board with this, because ultimately that's how you get other companies. I'm sure it's the shops and everything that pay to access this information. And if you don't have any technicians, well, it's going to be hard to convince the shop to pay you to market on there or find technicians on there. So, good move on your part, but it's got to still be difficult. But how many technicians do you have on there now?
Ooh, that's a good question. I honestly don't know off the top of my head. We have a big database on the fine wrench side, the wrenchway side. So the reverse job posting piece, we launched that probably 2 weeks ago. So that one's still really, really new. So I would bet it's less than 100 yet. It's probably right around there. But as we're going out, we're actually we hired additional marketing team to be able to really go out and go after them. So we've actually, on top of that, just we've put such a focus on that piece because we know that's a really, really important piece to the long-term sustainability of the business in general. So yeah, we've put a lot behind that for sure.
Cool. Now, there's a couple things I want to backtrack a little bit. So
Sure.
some things that interested me, or I think is important because a lot of other business owners don't think about this or do this, but you actually found a partner in crime, more or less, with you. You've had somebody who complemented your skill set. They brought different things to the table, and you actually merged companies because of that. Sounds like you kind of lucked out in a way, but I know many business owners that really face the challenge. They kind of go it alone. They don't think about partnerships or building relationships with key people that might be able to complement things they either can't or don't like to do. What really got you to open your eyes to partnering with this guy?
I think mine was more of a personal relationship. He was already mentoring me somewhat,
Okay.
and the age difference. He's only a couple years older than I am, but his experience was just so different than mine in the way he grew up. He was a CPA and then went to go work for tech companies in the past, and so he had, as we talked, and really he would take time. He was kind enough to take time out of his day to go have some beers with me and talk shop and talk through strategy. That's where, I think my strengths were appealing to him because I could, I could operate more on the sales and customer service end where he didn't like doing that. And so he probably saw some level of that. And then for me, seeing what talent he could bring to the table and knowing a lot of his team and how talented they were, it really was a no-brainer for me. And I just want to build a really, really good company. And so doing that takes really, really good people. And so that was, as we started to talk through things, even the night that we kind of started talking about actually merging, it was, I got home after we got done talking and I shot him a text. I'm like, hey, I think we should look at merging our companies. Like we have a lot of, we complement each other really, really well. And we did get lucky. I mean, from the standpoint of our teams aligning the way they did, not having to lay people off as a result, I think it just worked out really well. And a lot of what I read talks about playing to your strengths. And I think one of the things that I feel like I'm good at is just identifying what I'm bad at. And I talk to our team about it all the time. I'd say, you know what, this is something I suck at. Like we should have somebody else do this. And I'm not too proud in that regard to say that I'm terrible at something. And I think that, it goes back to me. I started off as a technician and I wasn't good at it. And you'd think growing up in a shop, I would have no problem with that. But it wasn't a good fit for my skill set. So I think early on, I got to understand that, like, if you're not good at something, it's okay. Everybody's not great at something. But conversely, I think there's strengths in everybody, and they've just got to figure out what those strengths are and get confidence in those things and then leverage the heck out of them. I think that's where a partnership in business, I think, is a big deal. I think that's really, really helpful.
And I think you pointed out, I consider this a key flaw with a lot of business owners because they do believe they have to be the expert in everything and they have to do everything. And that's where I find most of them get stressed out and burned out is as the company grows and expands. In the beginning, you probably do have to do everything. But over time, if you're doing things right and you're hiring people, you should be able to step back and focus on that future vision, focus on the business growth. Well, if you're always hands-on and always involved in everything, it's going to be hard to get a good team around you to do what you need to do. It's also going to become very difficult to actually be able to step back and have some sort of normal life because you're always going to be involved in the business. And as you pointed out, you've got a young kid running around the house, and I'm sure you want to spend time with your family and want to do vacations and a lot of things that many business owners take for granted because when they go on vacation, they're taking their laptop and everything else with them, and they're just working from a remote place for the most part. How do you really go about You lucked, as you point out, you lucked out. You kind of find the synergy for that. Um, Obviously, there's, not everyone's going to be so lucky. What are some of the things that people should really be looking for if they realize that, hey, maybe I need to find other people to complement my strengths? What did you do to really kind of lay out how this merger was going to work out?
Well, first and foremost, it wasn't easy, right? Like I think even when you partner up with somebody, you're not sure. You go from kind of having the final say on everything to now having to check with your partner to make sure that
Mhm.
you're good with that. And so managing that part was kind of difficult as we first started out. What we did was, and there's a book out that I haven't read yet that I need to because I just was at a conference, but it's called Rocket Fuel, and it talks about the two different kind of partners, right? Is
Mhm.
having a one and a two. Early on, Mark and I had decided that we were going to go 50-50 on everything. So whatever he gets paid, I get paid. Whatever, we are true partners in this. And
Mhm.
it was I think looking at that, there was some level of me just kind of having to take a slice of humble pie at some level too, right?
Mhm.
And saying, identifying those areas that, one, I didn't like to do in the first place, but two, wasn't very good at, uh, specifically accounting. Like I hate accounting. So be like having a CPA really worked out well.
Yep.
But it really was trying to figure out, okay, Mark's taking the lead. He's the CEO, and I'm going to do more of the partnership type stuff and talking with customers. While Mark is really effective at running day-to-day operations, I can then step back and do some more of these relational type things, which are my strengths. Then that's where it started to get clear. It did take a while. I mean, it probably took 6 months to really kind of get comfortable having a partner, a business partner. So definitely not perfect to this day,
Yep.
but it has been. When I look back at it, and this is something I would add, is that there are times where we'll bump heads or think something differently. But at the end of the day, I just know he's a good person. I trust him
Mhm.
fully. I don't. Um, I think he goes about things differently than I do, which is why it works so well. But when he makes a decision, I know it's not acting out of selflessness or selfishness. Like
Right.
he truly is making it for the greater good of the business. And I think that trust is such a key component. And if you think somebody's hiding something on you or trying to divert you from the truth, then things start to crumble really fast. But I have not had that with him. It has been, like I said, I fully trust him with everything that we
Sure.
do. And I think that's the core element to any relationship, but this one specifically.
Are you feeling like a prisoner in your own business? And what I mean by that is you spent all your time growing this company and you've gotten it to a point where it should be functioning on its own, but you still find yourself doing more than you should. You're getting way more in the details and you're getting stuck working on things that you have the staff and the team to actually solve for you. If you're finding that you're stuck here and that you can't find a way out, you can't seem to grow your top line sales or your bottom line revenue, please feel free to reach out. Check out danpaulsonletsgo.com. That's Dan Paulson, letsgo.com, to learn a little bit more about me and my company and what I can do to help you out. You can always reach out to me there and schedule a meeting. There's no obligation, no cost, and I might be able to provide you with some solutions that can help you get out of your own way. So you're 50-50 on everything, but there's got to be times where there's going to be like a tie. So you're in a tug of war and you're both kind of pulling opposite directions. How do you deal with those tiebreakers? Is there somebody else in the company who kind of steps in and gives input, or have you determined, okay, if it's related to this particular area, I have final say. If it's related to that particular area, you have final say?
we I This has been kind of interesting because we've really agreed on all of the big stuff. So
Okay.
all of the big strategic decisions. there's been times where I'll just take his lead. I've told him that before, if it's in this, if it's in this area, I'm going to follow your lead. And so one of the ways that I kind of reciprocated that now is he was having a tough time staying on top of account management and being able to really generate those relationships. And it's because his plate was full, doing a lot of the dev side of things and building out our product on top of really managing the day-to-day operations is a lot. So I was able to kind of step forward and take some of those relationships back on. I hadn't been in that role for a while. I'd been focusing more on sales. And so I think when it comes down to it, being a mission-driven company is a big deal, and doing the right thing is a big deal. And so I think when we look at it from that standpoint, like a lot of times the right thing to do is easy to see. And we've made some tough decisions based on that, but both, we'll both agree on a decision and then go to the team. So I think that part is important. Now, if we do have like a true, like something around content or something around marketing that we want to change, we'll bring in our VP of marketing, Sarah, who's extremely talented. Same with the recruiting side with Lisa Joseph, Kate Burowski on the sales side, director of sales. So I think we're lucky in that we've got such a deep, talented group of people that work with us. And I put our group up against anybody. I'm that confident in them that we can lean on them to say, hey, listen, we're having this discussion. Let's get everybody together and talk about it. The other thing we do is weekly meetings, right? And so I'm working from my home office this week. Our office has quickly gone to capacity. So we're trying to manage the parking lot a little bit and just the space in the building in general. So, but we do communicate every week. We have a manager meeting. We talk a lot through Slack. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's bad because somebody's message can come across differently than what they really, just like a text message or an email cannot come across the most clear. So if it's an important discussion, we try to get on the phone, talk about it, or get in the office and talk about it. But yeah, I think communication is such a big deal. And then having a strong team to be able to bounce stuff off of is obviously paramount. I think that's the biggest key in business, is having really, really talented people that, really fit your culture.
Right. So there's something, maybe you can allude to a little bit. You mentioned you have quite a few talented people on your team, and I know there's a number of companies that are trying to find talent or trying to retain the talent they've got. How'd you go about finding such good people? What was your secret?
My philosophy on this part is, if you find a good person, find a spot for them regardless. Lisa was my first big hire, director of recruiting. I did not have any recruiting background whatsoever. I actually hired her through Upwork as kind of a consultant. So she was initially helping me put together a recruiting plan. And then I said, I need somebody to run this too. And I'm like, I can't afford you. I know I can't afford you. And she's like, well, maybe we can work something out, because we had a good rapport. We liked working together. And so we were able to come to an agreement, and she was our first big hire. And I had another one, our director of customer accounts, or a director of customer success. I can't recall what exactly his title is. Director of account management. I know what it is. Matt Reynolds. Yeah. He was a good friend of mine from the neighboring town to my hometown, and I'd known him for a long time. And he had been in a job for 13 years that he wasn't especially in love with. And I just knew that from our conversations and hanging out. And so we got to the point where I was having trouble keeping up with all the customer stuff. So I called him one day and I'm like, hey, thinking about, adding somebody to our team. And he's like, yeah, man. I'm like, you've been at your job for 13 years. I want you to go talk to your family. Don't just say I'm in it. It's still a startup, still extremely risky. But he's like, yeah, I'll talk with my girlfriend and talk with my family and get back to you. And he did that the same day. He said he was coming. So for me, in the back of my mind, I'm always kind of looking for people with talent,
Mm-hmm.
and just different ways when I've got relationships with people. I love talking to people, so even hearing kind of what their experiences have been, and then being able to put it out there, I and say, hey, you know what, we might be looking for somebody. That helps a lot. Most of all of ours have come through referral.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the, especially the big hires, or people that we've worked with in the past. So, I think it's just always thinking about how you add talent to your team. And you talked about something earlier. You mentioned something earlier about
Mm-hmm.
working, essentially working on your business, not in it.
Right.
And that's, the E-Myth revisited by, I think it's Michael Gerber,
Yep.
talks, extensively about that. And I think that is such a key, is that when you start to grow quickly, your role comes away from the day-to-day stuff and goes on to the big stuff, right? And not that the day-to-day stuff isn't big, but the more you're able to add fuel to that fire, add really good people to that, and not in a time when you're desperate. That's something we talk to all of our shops about, is they make terrible hiring decisions when they're desperate. And so
Yes.
the more you can do that proactively and add ahead of time, sometimes cash can be tough to be able to justify it. But I think every time we've done it, it's worked out well. And we've got a really good, loyal team. And I just think that proactiveness is such a big deal when it comes to finding people.
Yeah, what I see is a lot of companies treat hiring as an event. They hire when they absolutely need somebody. So to your point, now they're at a point of desperation because they've usually waited too long to make that hiring decision. And now they're just scrambling to find a body. Well, in most cases, the people that are available during that time aren't the people that you want or the people you need. So it's good to hear you mention that and really talk about, hiring is kind of a continuous process. You really need to look at where there are opportunities and look at how you bring people in and keep that network going. It's a lot like sales. I don't think a lot of businesses realize that, you are essentially selling to an internal customer when you are looking for a hire, and you need to keep your feelers out and find those good people. And then, as you pointed out, find opportunities in your company to bring them in, even when it might not be the most opportune time, because it might be the right person. And that's in many cases more important. And as you pointed out, always leads to usually a better outcome if you find the right people instead of find the person for the right position.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where that culture thing comes into play, right? And
Yep.
I think a lot of times culture can kind of be a buzzword or something that somebody posts on a wall and forgets about. But
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that your hiring and firing decisions lead to your culture. And that is why hiring is so important. I mean, being able to in any business, I mean, finding good people is really, really hard, especially now. But the more you sit on your hands and think you're in good shape, the more you're going to put yourself in a tough position at some point. And a lot of people have trouble trying to figure that out, or trying to get their head around that, because maybe 20, 30 years ago, it was, hey, I'm lucky to have a job with this company, I'm going to stay there forever. It's not that way anymore. I mean, it's just not that way anymore. And we need people to understand that in order to build really good businesses.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Share a little bit about more what's coming with Wrenchway. So you mentioned, what you're doing with bringing in technicians. What do you see as the future for the company?
I think the reverse job posting has a big piece in this. It gives technicians a lot of ability to be able to navigate a job search and not get overwhelmed. Like right now, if they put their resume on Indeed, they're getting bugged by everybody and their mother. And it's overwhelming, and it almost causes some level of paralysis, because you're just so overwhelmed by so many people reaching out to you. So I think the reverse job posting piece is huge. We just launched that. So getting that off the ground is a big priority for us. We're really, really active on the school side now. We actually hired, again, this was another hire, Krista Battaglia out in Virginia. She doesn't live in Wisconsin. She had reached out to me. We started talking, and she had worked for ASE and worked for Skills USA at the national level, and had a lot of connections with schools. And this was an initiative that we were trying to tackle anyways, but we were still, we felt like we were probably 6 to 12 months out from when she came to us. But she was such a rock star that you just figure it out, right? Like we brought her on board. And so the school piece is a big deal to us. I look at this really because of the mission side of the business is twofold of trying to fix the industry from the standpoint of people leaving the industry. We do have a little bit of a problem with, it's not a little bit, it's a big problem with technicians leaving the industry altogether, whether that's going to another trade or that's going to a white collar job, whatever it is, we're having a lot of people leave, which is
now, why are they leaving? I gotta stop you there because that's interesting. Yeah. Usually people leave positions because there's no opportunity available. Here, there's tons of opportunity. So why are they looking for other career paths?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it had to do with pay for a long time. So the pay structure for a technician is typically they're paid on a flat rate system, meaning they are doing a job. That job, for the most part, unless it's diagnostics or something like that, has a book time, which tells you how long that job should take. And for ease of estimating a job, a repair, a shop has these codes and they give labor per job. Right. So they're charging that out regardless of if they, whatever time it takes them. So if an 8-hour job takes 6 hours, they still get paid for 8 hours. But if that same 8-hour job takes 20 hours, they're still only getting paid for 8 hours.
8 hours, yeah. And
so there's some manufacturers, this is more on the dealer end, manufacturers that cut times or, maybe don't account for rust in the Midwest and a bolt breaking off or, stuff like that. And so techs will get frustrated with that. There's some techs that absolutely love it because they make one heck of a good living off of that system. But there's a lot of them that aren't in love with that. They like to have the guarantee of this is the amount of money I'm going to make when I go home. It's not like a sales mentality where, sales is kind of go out, kill and bring it home. A lot of these really, really talented technicians are, they crave that security of knowing what their paycheck's going to be every week. So I think that's one. In order to do that, and this is something that I've talked with lots of coaching organizations about, is getting the labor rates up to where they need to be, which those consumers that are out there aren't going to love to hear this, but when we compare ourselves to a plumber or to a electrician, we're really far behind as far as like what we're charging for the labor. I had a friend of mine that owned a shop, still owns a shop, and he said he had a window washer come in and needed repairs done on his vehicle. And so the window washer said, hey, while I'm here, I could, I got all the supplies, I could clean up your windows, whatever. So they did that. And when the bills came back together, the window cleaning was more than what the repair was. And so my friend said, okay, how does that even happen? We've got this big building with all this advanced tooling and training that we need to do. And this person had, a bottle with some squeegees and some other stuff, like the overhead wasn't even close, yet he was making more money on that side. And so getting the labor rates in tune with where they should be is a big deal. I think the advanced technology is another piece, right? So when we talk about techs leaving, there's some level of this stuff is getting really tough, really fast. And when I say tough to understand, with autonomous vehicles on their way, electric vehicles already here. I think I read last week that between the hybrid electric and the battery electric vehicles, that's 10% of the new sales market now. So that went from like 3 or 4% to 10, and that's a big pie, right? That's a huge pie, new retail vehicles. So now that's 10%, and all of these vehicle manufacturers saying by 2030, 2035, their entire selection of vehicles is going to be electric. That's going to change a lot of the technology that goes into this, and a lot of the focus goes from replacing an engine to fixing somebody's ADAS system so they don't crash, right? Like
Right.
it's just a completely different focus. And even like the technology to calibrate ADAS and work on it. So advanced driver assistance system, I think is what it's short for.
Your adaptive cruise control, things like that, lane change stuff. Yeah.
So like the system, in order to be able to repair and diagnose those systems, costs about $100,000. So you're adding more overhead. And so these tools aren't getting cheaper. They're not getting easier to use. And so I think you're seeing some people fade out because of that. And then lastly, it's still hard work, right? It's still, you know, when it's 90 degrees in Wisconsin and you're underneath a car that just was driving for 2 hours, it's hot. Like it's not the most fun thing in the world to do. So, you know, I think there's a variety of different reasons. That's a reason why we do the challenges out to technicians, is to understand what it is that they want in a career, and hopefully be able to train the shops to adapt to that, and you know, just overall offer a good working experience for their internal family.
That's excellent. Well, we're running out of time here, so I want to finish up with one last question. And this one's kind of a hypothetical, but if you were to meet with another business owner, what is it that you would tell them they need to do, or what would help them be more successful in the business they have?
It's a great question. I think it all goes back to working on the business, not in the business. And that comes from taking more of a CEO type of mentality than a small business owner, right? And granted, we're not in retail, we're not in some of those other areas where maybe going out and finding people is the number one priority, but being able to work on processes, being able to work on efficiency, how do you make your business better as a whole, I think is what separates really, really good businesses from some that struggle or just have been kind of in the same spot for a long time. So looking at some of those places, I've gone to a hair salon to get my hair cut, and there's some that are run drastically better than others. There's, you know, you go to a restaurant, and restaurants are really struggling with this right now because they can't find people to bartend and serve and that kind of stuff. But there's some that you can tell when new management takes over because the experience from a customer standpoint is just worse, and not by a little bit, by a lot. And so to me, that's where, as a business owner, I see people, I could see the most gain. And you can do it really fast, but you have to educate yourself, and you have to be able to, you know, become a learner of how to do that. And I think that's a huge deal for any business owner that's out there.
Yeah, you're speaking my language, my friend.
Love it.
Love it. Well, thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. How can they get a hold of you? How can these techs get a hold of you if you want them to find your Wrenchway site?
Yeah, they can go to, I'm really active on LinkedIn. We put a lot of content out on LinkedIn. So they can find me on LinkedIn, or they can go to wrenchway.com, check out the website there, get in touch with us through that channel. Or they can just email me at jayg@wrenchway.com.
Excellent. Great. Jay, thanks again for taking the time. I really appreciate it today. This has been a wonderful discussion. We could go on for hours. I know we could because I know you pretty well. But I know you got work to do. I got work to do too. And again, I really appreciate your time. Thanks again.
Thank you, Dan.
You bet. Take care.
Thanks again for checking out Successful Not Satisfied. Hopefully there's something you learned and you're able to take away and use in your own company. Check out our next episode in the coming weeks. And also, I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, KGI Design Group. They have been instrumental in helping put these podcasts and many other things together for us. They do a lot of my graphics and my branding, and if you need help with that, I urge you to contact them. KGIDesignGroup.com. Thanks again.